Okay, so for context, we're still at the CivCom at Pandora event, and we had an opportunity to have a Pandora employee come and talk about their civilian reintegration experience. So, Gary, thank you very much for joining us. He drove an hour to be here, which is a testament of a lot of the support that you wind up getting from veterans. You know, if you reach out to a veteran and say, "Hey, I need some help," you're likely to get some help. So
Sure.
Thank you very much for...
You're welcome. But it was Kevin. Kevin's responsible, just so you know. He did it all.
Okay, Kevin's persuasive. Well, we thanked
Very
Kevin
persuasive.
already. Now we're thanking you.
Kudos to Kevin.
So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name's Gary Backus. I work here at Pandora. Been here about 5 years. I'm responsible for safety and security overall for the company. I love what I do. I love being here. It's probably one of the best jobs I've ever had. I served 5 years in the military, security police K9. I was a narcotic detector dog handler, 81152A.
Sorry, which branch?
The Air Force, United States Air Force. So I started off at Lackland Air Force Base. That's where everybody starts off. And then I think I ended up in Bowling Air Force Base, General's Row is what it's called, Washington, D.C. From there, I went to Osan Air Base in Korea, and then from there, I went to Zaragoza Air Base in Spain.
So how many years total service did you have?
5
years total
yes.
service. And when did you decide? Like, how did you make the decision that you wanted to get out of the military?
I don't think well, if you want me to have it, I'll have it.
I can hold it here.
Okay.
That much.
I was a little concerned about logistics in the military. So being a military working dog handler, I often would deal with German Shepherds. And when I was in Osan Air Base in Korea, I had a German Shepherd weighed about 125 pounds, and they gave me a Jeep CJ7 to put him in. And then I went to Spain, and I got a Beagle, and they gave me a SWAT van to put him in. So I was just a little concerned at how things were going, and I thought maybe I could do a little bit better in the private sector. So that's what kind of drove me to think about that. The military wasn't, it's a great place to be in certain circumstances, without a doubt. But in my career field at that particular time, I don't believe that there was a great deal of focus on the military police portion.
Why did you say you decided to join the military? What was the reason you joined?
I had two loves when I was a child. One was to be an architect, and one was to be in law enforcement. While I was in school, my grades were good enough where I could do a work-study program. So I worked for the Department of Energy as a space layout designer. And I decided that sitting behind a desk wasn't really for me. I wanted to be out and about. So I tried the architectural portion, so to speak, with the office layout designer, and then I decided to go into the law enforcement portion, and that's where I've been ever since, public safety.
Okay. Now, so in the different duty stations you had, like what was the point that you said, all right, it's time for me to get out, and what did you think you were going to do when you decided to get out?
Logistics drove my thought process for getting out. Just the lack of concern about the animals, the lack of concern about law enforcement in general,
Okay.
kind of told me that that wasn't the focus. So I decided at that point that maybe I should try my hand at doing something outside of military. And I knew from the office layout design portion that I would never go back to that particular avenue,
Okay.
that I would stay in the public safety cluster
Okay.
in some shape, form, or fashion. So my thought was I would get out and I would go into law enforcement.
Okay. How long, when you were in, how long before you got out did you start like researching what the different opportunities were? Like, so how did you know what locations you wanted to go to?
Sadly, I did not. I did no research. If I knew then what I know now, it would have been a different circumstance, I'm sure. I gave no thought to it whatsoever. I said, my term is up, I extended for a year, I'm going to go and see what happens once I get out. You know, I got discharged, and now I'm just jogging every day with nowhere to go, you know. And it was kind of tough there for a little bit. But one day I actually was jogging and saw the sheriff of the town that I was in, and he happened to be a friend of my grandmother's, and he was like, "Hey, what are you doing? I thought you were in the military." And I'm like, "I'm out." And he's like, "Come see me," you know, and that's where it all started. So I had no plan, I had no circumstance, nothing considered at all and just happened to come across the sheriff of the city out on a jog, because that's what we did in the military. Almost every day we'd go for a run, right? So I was out going for a run, and I think I had on combat boots, I think, while I was running. So no jogging shoes. I had on my combat boots. Had them on, and I was out there running like it was a regular military day. It was kind of funny. And then went into his office, and we had a conversation. And next thing you know, I was a deputy sheriff.
Where was this?
Suffolk, Virginia.
Virginia?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you got out of the military, you got out of Virginia?
I got out in New Jersey. I think it was Fort Dix.
Okay.
In that vicinity. So I went from Zaragoza back, or maybe it was McDill? What's in Jersey?
I don't know.
Dix is in Jersey. I think Dix is the only exit point. I think it was
Okay.
Fort Dix.
So did you stay in that area then?
No. I'm from Maryland originally.
Okay.
So I went home for a little bit.
Okay.
And we had a vacation home in Virginia.
Okay.
So I decided to go there to relax for a little bit.
Okay.
And that's where I got hooked up in law enforcement again.
And so how long did you stay in law enforcement in Virginia?
About 2 years. I was still young. The sidewalks in Suffolk, Virginia kind of rolled up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm still full of vigor and vim and a lot of energy. And I think the biggest thing to happen in Virginia back then was probably Friday night lights, football, and getting your car clean and going down Main Street on Sunday. That was it. Nothing else happened. So I felt it was time to make a change. And then I went to Baltimore City, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. And then I got involved in some other things there in the law enforcement world. I actually went into corrections then, got a position at the Baltimore City Jail.
At a prison?
Well, there's a difference between a jail and a prison.
What is the difference?
So in jail, you're waiting to go to trial.
Okay.
So, and if you do
Okay.
get sentenced, so 364 days or less, you can go to jail. 365 days or more, you go to prison. But typically a jail or a detention center is where you're waiting to go to trial. So I thought that was a little bit better because they had something to lose, whereas in a prison they have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So having a confrontation with an inmate in a prison environment could be pretty detrimental, depending on how much time they had to serve.
Okay.
They have no care whatsoever.
So now you're in Baltimore.
I'm in Baltimore, doing corrections, and then what happens? I think it was a major snowstorm actually happened. We had 13 small snowstorms in one season, and the city actually ran out of salt.
What year is this?
This was 1995, maybe.
Okay.
And at that point, I decided that I didn't want to play in the snow anymore. I was pretty much done because once they ran out of salt, they brought in this stuff called slag. It's nothing more than gravel, basically nothing more than gravel. And they tried to put that down as a substitute, and it didn't do much. So I loaded up the van and moved to Florida. And then I said, let's try a little bit of corporate security, contract security, see how things are going down there. And that was after I kind of started thinking about law enforcement as a career. I kind of said to myself, my first 10, 20 years, I would kind of work 4 different positions is what my goal was. I would do law enforcement, I'd do corrections, I'd do contract security, and then I'd do corporate security. And then for my final, I would stay in whichever one I found the most appealing, and that's where I would stay for the rest. So corporate security kind of won over, and that's where I've been ever since. So
How did you come up with those 4 groups? Like how were you even aware of that?
I think, there are a lot of countries where college tuition is free. Brazil, Finland, Germany, Switzerland, some other places, and I think in the Netherlands or the Dutch, I think they have like a vocational program where you say, let's focus on what you want to do and what we need you for, and let's do that, earn a certificate, and then stay in that job for the rest of your life. So I kind of thought the same thing. I'm like, well, let me test this particular market. Let me test this market. Let me test this market. Let me test this market. And whichever one I love, which one I feel I have a passion for, that I feel that I go home with a sense of accomplishment every day, that's the one that I would focus on for the rest of my life. So corporate security is the one that won over, part and parcel because of my children. When I was in law enforcement, my daughter actually grabbed me by my leg one night on my way to work and said, "Daddy, make sure you come home." And she was 5. And I'm like, well, if she knows that there's a possibility I may not return, maybe I should do something to make her a little bit at ease. So that's where the whole corporate security part came in. So.
Okay. So now we're in Florida.
We're in Florida. We're doing contract security. Major country clubs down there. There's something about Floridians and country clubs and gated communities. I'm not sure what it is, but
Isn't Mar-a-Lago in Florida?
yes, yeah, it is down there also.
You had any time at Mar-a-Lago?
No, thankfully, no. No time at
All right, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving.
let's not go there. Because I'll be talking to Anderson Cooper in a little bit if we stay on this track. Anderson and he's my man. So.
KTVU will be over here by 10.
True, very true. So then I did contract security, country clubs, major country clubs down there, talking $1 million homes and up. Gave it a shot, and it was a good position. It was nice to do. I think I was still in that military mode, so to speak, because I believe that I'm approachable. I think I'm approachable, but I don't think a lot of people think I'm approachable. You know, I'm really a big teddy bear. You know, Cecile will tell you I'm a big teddy bear. I may not look like I may look like a bear, but I'm a teddy bear. So the country club environment was very interesting because when you're in the military, things are black and white. You know, there is really no gray, so to speak. You know, they say, well, you have a color television. I'm like, yeah, so what? I throw it out the window. But things are still black and white. And in that environment, in that country club environment with the folks who are retired and, you know, all the money that they have, they don't want security. You know, they want the appearance of security. They want to look better than the other country club. They don't care whether their homes are broken into because they'll just tear it down and build a new one so they'll feel better about it. So I decided that I can't do this. You know, I just can't. I'm not that customer focused, so to speak. You know, contracts were won on the golf course. No matter what you did every month to meet all of their metrics and key objectives, you know, just one swing of a golf club, contract goes to another security provider and you're out, you know. So I didn't want to be responsible for the loss of a contract or affecting people's lives like that, you know. So I decided to go into corporate security.
I mean, that's an astonishing insight because there are a lot of parallels associated with that with getting a job anywhere, right? You know, a lot of, you know, folks from underserved communities and things like that, like when we move into new job markets, talent markets, we assume, oh, if I do all of these things, it's all about my work. If I get straight A's, if I, you know, if I'm the top salesperson,
Right.
you know, I will wind up winning the next whatever that is. And I think, you know, what you experience and what tends to be hard for a lot of folks is that there is a strong networking component that influences your success.
Yes.
Are you known by the right way? Like, we are not concerned with who you know, who knows you.
Right.
And that's really important. And I got exposed to that at my job at Dow Chemical, where I got to go into a country club for the first time ever. I'm from Harlem. Like, I don't know anything about golf, you know, and country clubs, but I got to see just like the functioning of these country clubs, and you could see the pre and the post, and it was like, oh wow, just being here and being seen matters for opportunity.
It really does.
And so I could easily see how that would be something meaningful for a lot of those contracts you're talking about.
Networking is very, very critical, and you're right. It's not what you know; it's who you know.
Yeah.
And you said it. It's who knows you.
Yeah.
Your character, your integrity, making a name for yourself, and people starting to understand that this person's serious about what they're doing goes a long way, and what you're trying to accomplish with the rest of your life.
So you're in Florida now, and then
In Florida, and then there for 3 or 4 years, did everything from country club security to operations to sales. Sold about $3 million worth of business one year. Made the chairman's club. You know that I'm a salesman. I can do this. I'm really great.
sorry, how did you get into sales from security?
Well, you know, I believe that every salesperson should have knowledge of the product that they're selling.
Got it.
So
Okay.
being at the country club level, then being at the operations level, and then being at the sales level, I not only could I walk the walk, but not only could I talk the talk, I could walk the walk.
Yeah.
I could sell it and I could build it at the same time. So if I had to design a program, I knew exactly how to do that.
Got it.
And then I knew exactly how to sell it. So. And then I think at that time, I think it was around 1999, and I think that's when the whole .com thing started happening here in California. So I packed up again and moved to California, so to experience this wonderful tech situation out here and started in private sector security again with the same company. I transferred from that company to another branch here in California down in San Jose. And at that point, I was running the contract security side for Sun Microsystems with Joe Cheramani and Denise Heinrich and some other folks down there. And it was a really big contract. It was like 5,000 hours a week of security business manpower hours and about 600 security officers, many states and overseas as well. So that was a lot of fun. But then again, it was still contract business. You're very rarely are you considered a business partner. You know, when you use the word contractor or you're a vendor, then you really don't have the relationship that you're looking for. You want to be a business partner as best you can, or you want to be on the other side of the table.
Right.
You know, so that was the goal. Once I kind of saw how things happened in the contract world, I said, no, I'm not really sure I want to do this. I want to be on the other side. So, and then from there, I went off and decided to do the corporate side.
Okay.
So,
And so your son, how did you get to Pandora from there?
Pandora, how did I get here? A few corporate stints. I was at Johnson & Johnson for a while. I was responsible for their West Coast operations. I did Sios and I did Alza, which is where Google sits now. They did that patch that releases the medication. So that was kind of fun being there for a little bit. J&J is huge, 81,000 employees. It was
Here?
Well, around the world. It was just massive.
Yeah.
A massive company to work for, a great company to work for, great guiding principles and things of that nature. So from there, they closed down their West Coast operations, and I came into San Francisco. No, I actually went into Marin County, and I worked at Autodesk for a little bit. So Autodesk, Riverbed, and then Pandora.
Got it.
So pretty much stayed in the corporate wheelhouse, so to speak, for quite some time, and that's where I'm at now.
And why Pandora?
Pandora, Pandora is family. Pandora is music. You know, they say music soothes the savage beast, so to speak. Nobody really gets upset with us. You know, we're loved by everyone. You know, and that's a good feeling to have. I think the family environment is important. I think the collaborative effort that we go through here is very important, and I think it's very similar to the military. I think the military is family. I think the culture in the military is collaborative. It preaches teamwork. Here we preach teamwork. We preach collaboration, as you can see. You know, nobody has an office. I think we have no offices in the entire company at all. You know, I mean, the CEO, from the CEO down, everyone sits in a pod. So, I mean, you can't get any more collaborative than that. You know, you can just walk right up and have a conversation with a person, or we've got great conversation areas where you can just go sit with your team and brainstorm and things of that nature. And it was very similar to the military in that sense. So when I first got here, I think what was most attractive, it was a lot of low-hanging fruit, but I didn't have to be on point all the time. You know, when I was at J&J, I had the world's largest narcotics vault. You know, so I'm constantly thinking, well, Hell's Angels coming any day now, and they're going to try to pull this vault out of the wall and take everything that's in it, or someone's going to try to come get whatever's in this vault. So every place I've been, there's been something of significance that someone would want. And then here, it's not that people don't want things here, it's just the threat is not as high as it is in other locations. So you have a moment to be comfortable, you have a moment to relax and meet people and learn people and appreciate people and just offer a little bit of color in your world, you know, instead of making everything black and white. So I've learned a lot while I've been here. It's actually tamed me a lot. Pandora has. So.
What advice would you give to your younger self while you're in the military? Because that's what this video is about. This video is going out to current military families so that they can use it to inform their reintegration plan.
You know, I think one of the things that's very important, and I'm going to use, I love volleyball. I coached volleyball, I ref volleyball, I'm on a booster club to help raise money for athletic programs. And I'm going to use this analogy. You know, one of our coaches, she's very keen on taking freshmen. If they have the skill set or if they show the potential, she's willing to move them up to varsity as a freshman. And that's where they stay for 4 years, because that level is very fast. And if that person can stay there for 4 years, they've created a superstar. So I say this to say, if back then I would have started looking for a job the day I got the job, not after I got out of the position. I would have started then creating networks and relationships and trying to figure out, well, what are you going to do in year 6 or year 7 or year 8? When are you going to start doing it, what you want to do in year 6, 7, and 8? Who do I need to talk to now in year, and then, okay, now it's time to start buttoning down the hatches. Who knows you? Who wants you? How are you going to survive for the rest of your life once you're out of the military? So I would have started way early, way early. I think 4 years may be too early, but at a minimum, I think 2 is keen on getting a position or start thinking about what you want to do with the rest of your life once you get out of the military.
Well, I love that you said that because that's exactly what we enable current military families to do with CivCom. Like, there is no reason at all you can't start as early as you want to, and pause. I mean, the decision to get out doesn't necessarily, have to come once you start. You may get the information and say, you know what, another tour is in my best interest to, get access to grow my network, to learn, to gain another skill or certification and things like that. So I absolutely love that you said that.
And I think one of the things that folks they may not be aware of is there's nothing wrong with going on an informational interview. You're not going for the job. You want to learn about this company and see, because I think we forget or we devalue ourselves a little bit and we say, okay, fine, I really want this job. I really want this job. But do you really want this company?
Yeah.
And I think that's critical. I think informational interviews are very, very important. And I think we should sit in front of folks. And not only should they be trying to select us as an employee, we should be making a decision whether we want to select them as a company. And I think that's critical. And if I had this level of maturity and intellect back then, it would have been nice to have. So you live and you learn, is what they say. So.
Any questions from folks in the audience?
So what made you decide, I know that you said Silicon Valley was interesting, but how did that even cross your radar, right? Like, I consider myself pretty smart. I was working on the Hill, worked at JP Morgan, and I had really no idea what this whole tech thing was before I came out. So how did you start to learn about what this is all about before you got here?
Well, the company that I was working for actually had an office in Silicon Valley. So they were doing so well profit-wise, it made everybody on the East Coast jealous, because the tech business they were just paying astronomical amounts of money for things. So that kind of said to me that this business is booming, and not from a profit standpoint, but there's something going on out here. There's money to be made out here. Technology is in our lives everywhere. I mean, it's in our refrigerator, it's in our car tire, it's in our shoes and the design, it's everywhere. So why not be a part of that, if you can be? So that's what kind of got me started, was the fact that the company had an office here in Silicon Valley while I was in Florida.
So you have a ton of experience, which I think is great. In the last few jobs that you've been going for, have you included all of that experience on your resume? Or have you edited it to be specific to corporate security?
It's a good question.
I think I've edited a lot of it. I was telling Kevin earlier today that I'm a huge fan of Colin Powell. And I really don't believe in resumes, because he didn't believe in resumes. Because resumes, they do tell you something, but they don't tell you everything. It's a way for you to make a decision of whether or not you want to see a person, but I don't think it should be a decision on whether you want to hire that person based on what you see on the resume. I think it's more important is, what is that person going to do for me, not what have they done in the past. I recently had a conversation with my manager where I said the next security person I hire is going to have no experience. I don't want a security person at all. I want to teach them how to be a security person, because as long as they have that energy, that desire, the intelligence, the bandwidth, and they're moldable, I'd rather have a new person than to have a person who's just going to go from Cisco to Pandora and still get their morning cup of coffee at 9:15, still get their snack at 10, do a little bit of work, then do this and then do that, and do the same job that they did at Cisco, but do it here and do it almost the same way. I want someone who's going to think out of the box, come in, have so much energy that I'm trying to catch up with them, because I believe that my job is to make everyone who works, I don't believe that I work for them. They don't work for me. So my job is to make them successful. So the answer to your question, and I'm sorry that I went off on that little tangent there, but I edited it a lot. And I tried to do more talking than I had on paper. I just put enough on paper to get through the door, and then I sold what I believed I needed to sell in front of the person. Because when you're sitting in front of an interviewer, honestly, the only competition you have is yourself. There is no other competition, none whatsoever. Because if you don't ask before you leave, were you satisfied with everything that we've done today? Why do you need to see anyone else? Then you don't deserve that job, you know? So you should be asking right then and there, is there anything else I can do to get this position? If they say, oh, no, you did great, okay, fine, let's talk money.
Brilliant.
You know? Don't leave and let that person say, oh, I'm going to call you in a couple days after I see other people. Why do you need to see anybody else? I'm here, you know? You just told me I did great, so what is there to talk about? So.
What sort of advice can you give for separatees such as myself, who's trying to get a foot in the door in this whole, it's a tech boom right now, this tech industry and whatnot, and I'm trying to get there, but you know, here I am unemployed for a couple months and whatnot. I'm sending those applications and I feel like a lot of doors are closing or they're trying to or whatnot. What kind of advice or kind of recommendations you can provide for those who are trying to make a 180-degree career change into the private sector, such as myself, so that we can get into the tech boom? Like, what can you tell us?
I would say network, network, network. You know, they say location, location, location to sell a house. Network, network, network to sell yourself. Because again, it goes back to, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You've got to figure out who can I find in that company that can give me or give my resume a boost. I mean, today, for example, I had 2 folks come to me, my son needs a job, I need a job, can you help me? Absolutely, I can help you. I've known you for a while. I don't know your kids, but I know your family's great. I'm willing to take that step. I'm willing to submit that application for you and put it in the system. It's about who you know. If you're not in LinkedIn, and if you're not building up the people that you know in LinkedIn and finding out where they're working, and then all of a sudden you see that job that you want, and then you see, well, you know what, there are 19 people that you know who work at that particular company. Reach out to those 19 people and say, hey, can one of you guys slide my application, you know, into the system? Because most companies offer a referral bonus. So you're helping them and they're helping you. You know? So networking is very important.
I'm ready to send you that network.
Okay. You send it to, what'd you do in the Coast Guard?
I was a maintenance manager for 12 years.
Okay.
But the thing is, I've been doing ship repair, ship design, things like that. I'm trying to transition into the tech industry, and they're like, oh, well, they're sending me to those ship repairs and all those other guys that I don't want to work for. I
Right.
want to do something else. I'm doing career change, and so that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, you know, you may want to make that investment in a person who can actually turn your resume into something spectacular. And the lingo is very important. You know, you say ship and people in the tech industry are like, we don't have any ships. You know, but if you say electronic engineer or I've been dealing with electronics for 18 years, that's a different story, you know. So it's all on what you say, it's all on how you say it, not what you say. So.
Let me jump into that as well. There is a possibility, and I don't know, but you may not be able to jump directly into the job you want right now. And so you might have to, you know, get something that's gonna pay the bills, and on the side figure out how am I going to jump into that job that I want. And a lot of times you have the opportunity to volunteer at organizations and do that sort of work, which shows a high level of commitment, right? Wow, this guy is in this job, he's still doing what he needs to do, but he's over here volunteering for these sorts of activities. That also allows you to expand your network and put down that you've actually put points up on the board, as some people would say. You've actually generated value for an organization, maybe as volunteer work, maybe as your actual job.
Thank you.
So just to add to that, thank you.
I want those folks there.
All right, so being like you, my background in the military, I was an operator. Outside of the police force, there's not room for many people like me in the civilian world. Okay, there's not much call for weapon system specialists walking through town. That probably gets you bad press. So what you have to do is look at the area in front of you, look in your terms, right? Look at the tides and the currents, and then adjust course accordingly, right? Not a Navy guy, but did my best.
You got it.
Right? So
We're checking.
yeah, right. So in this world, education is key. After that is performance. The education gets you in the door. The performance, once you're there, keeps you there. Okay? If I were you, I would start leveraging my GI Bill or something to that effect and use that to get my education started while I figured out what I wanted to do. In parallel, I would look at companies like startup companies that need guys like you that have that experience and then apply it to a new field. For example, that kid from the Netherlands that figured out how to clean up the trash pools in the middle of the Pacific. He's hiring Navy guys as fast as he can find them, because he doesn't know anything about working in the water as far as ships and tack and stuff, right? He just knows what his thing does. But he's smart enough to know, go find the people that do. So you have to start getting customized to the thought process that you're not used to. In the military, we're used to linear thought processes, right? Black, white, 0, 1, right? A, B, C, D, right? Out here, not so much. You have to start looking outside the box, outside your comfort zone. Don't wait for somebody to tell you something. Use that intestinal fortitude, that initiative that was ingrained in you from day one at basic training, when they shaved your head, right? To start looking at what's going on. Oh, trust me, I showed up at basic training with hair down to my shoulder blades. Okay? I was a drill sergeant's barber's dream. Okay? So that would be my advice.
Question that mainly has to do with tech and age. I'm a little bit more chronologically challenged than most people getting out of the military.
Season.
Yes, seasoning. What sort of advice do you have for the people who are, over 30, over 40, over 50, and looking to break into tech?
Your experience, it's about selling, okay? I don't care what you do. I don't care who you are. You have to be able to sell yourself. If you can't sell yourself, then you're never going to get what you want. It's just that simple. What's on paper, what you typed into the system, what's in the application, no disrespect intended, but you've got a 26-year-old going through resumes and they see this person's been working for 80 years, and they don't know what that means, but you've got to figure out a way to get into the door, and then you've got to figure out a way to wow, shock and awe, once you make it in the door. And that means selling yourself. And that means having no competition. That means having no competition. You've done it all. You're worldly. You have experience that some folks have never touched. And don't get me wrong, it's okay to get a college degree. I think everyone should have a college degree, but I think it's okay to be in the military, and I think that military training is equivalent and sometimes more than a college degree.
Thank you.
And that, you've got to figure out how to sell that. I can say that I focused on law enforcement for 5 years straight. They can say, I went to college and I learned English and I learned math and I learned this and I learned all that, and I focused on law enforcement for 6 months. Okay. I think I'd rather have the guy who's been doing this job for 5 years, carrying weapons and dealing with air-based ground defense and dealing with all these other little ins and outs and terrorist situations and domestic situations. Everything that happens on a military base happens in a city. There's no doubt about it. And every job that every one of you guys have somewhere in the private sector, that job is out there. And you've just got to figure out who your competition is, and then you've got to figure out how to win. It's about winning.
That's what I wanted to tap into that, because I'm getting close to the chronologically challenged space. I'm already in the melanin challenged space.
Oh.
There are a variety of challenges that almost everyone has, in tech in the Bay Area, and that's why these people that are in the careers, networking gets more important when you have these challenges. When you are not, I forget what his name is, but the Snapchat founder, he did an amazing article. He's like, look, my parents were millionaires. I knew VC. It was easy for me to become a billionaire at 24, right? And he just knew he was very honest about all the benefits that he had. I knew how to be aggressive and negotiating because I listened to my father, who was a lawyer, negotiate. Had all of these different benefits. A lot of us don't have those, right? So what we have to rely on is, one, being qualified for that opportunity, you have to meet the standard, full stop, because everybody else is meeting that standard. But meeting the standard is not enough. You need people in that organization that can advocate for you. If you're sending resumes to a website, you're wasting your time. Around here, if you're trying to get a job in tech and sending a resume in, thinking you're going to get a call back, you're not. You need someone in that organization that can say, not only did your resume come up to the top of Boolean search, but also someone can say, hey, listen, let me tell you why this person is more awesome than everybody else. You're not going to be able to do it for yourself. So that's one of the reasons we're trying to have these networking events, because whatever it is you're trying to do, who's there that can advocate for you, that's willing to say, this is a great guy, we need him in this company, he's going to help us win relative to our competition. You need someone with access to doors that you don't have access to.
Besides going to networking events, what are some other ways to network? I mean, besides LinkedIn?
It's so funny. I mean, how many people here have kids? How many people are a member of their PTA? How many people are a member of their booster club? High school kids? Anybody got high school kids? No, not yet. You can network anywhere. PTA, church. Selling yourself is just like a sales call. It's going to take 1,000 contacts to get 100 handshakes, to get 10 invites, to get 1 interview. It's the same thing. You're selling yourself, you're selling something, and that's you. And you've got to remember, every person you meet is an opportunity. So you don't necessarily have to join LinkedIn. You don't necessarily have to join HRM or BOMA or any organization that's out there, but they are there for you to join, to network, to learn and understand what these folks have to offer. Every opportunity that you have, sitting on the bus, we get on a bus, we get on a subway, we get on a train, we get on a plane, we grab our phones, we grab our headphones, and we shut down. When you should be having a conversation with the person next to you, because you're probably sitting next to a millionaire, and you don't even know it. You're sitting next to somebody who's had a startup company. You don't even know it, because you're trying to relax. I get it. You're shutting down. I get it. But you know what? Have a 15 or 20-minute conversation before you shut down. Because A, you're sitting next to that person for an hour or 2 or 3, and you want to know a little bit about them before they steal your iPod while you're sleeping. You want to know where to find them later.
Thank you for saying that, because I'm from New York, and I was like, I could also be sitting next to the killer. And now I'm engaged in conversation, made eye contact with someone.
There's an acceptable ratio of risk.
Okay, fair enough.
No matter how you look at it. But yeah, you don't. Joining those organizations are great professionally. But privately, there are so many other opportunities out there that you could do something and learn about something, or have a conversation with a person where that light bulb goes off. This person works at Cisco. Oh, this person works at Pandora. This person works at the shipyard, or this person works at the port. You don't know until you find out. So every handshake is almost like they say dates are auditions for romance. Every handshake is an audition possibly for a job. You just don't know.
You have to practice. Do what we call the elevator pitch. Have your story ready in 60 seconds or less, 2 minutes at a stretch. Have it ready. You're not prepared if you're not practiced. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, especially around here, especially those of us that are chronologically challenged in the tech industry, you need to be extra polished. You need to be extra clear on what it is you're after or what your story is. Okay? The last thing is yes, we're talking about networking. LinkedIn cannot be more important. But that is the beginning, not the end. Lastly is, everybody in the military has one thing in common. We do not like to talk about ourselves.
That's
okay? I have some advice for you. Get over it. Okay? Because if you can't talk about yourself, you can't talk about what you want. So that also means you got to be honest. Okay? That's what I got.
I only asked 5 questions. The first question, I want you to take 3 minutes and tell me about yourself. Something that's not on the resume. And I kid you not, 9 out of 10 people, they fall flat. They have no idea. The first thing out of their mouth, well, I did this. No, that's on your resume. And then I tried to even spice it up a little bit. I said, you know what, if you say something on your resume, the interview's over. And they're like, you're serious? And I'm like, yes, I'm serious. If you say one more thing that's on your resume, we're done. And then all of a sudden, it becomes important. And now they can talk forever. And I'm like, talk about anything. Talk about airplane ride, talk about your motorcycle, I don't care. but let me hear you say something that's not on your resume. And then I asked them, I said, you know, if I gave you a check for $500,000 to start a company, what would you do? And then everybody's like, oh, I'd open up a shoe store, or oh, I do this, and okay, that's great. And then my other question is, I want you to tell me, if you were a company, what would your brand be? What would your motto be? You know, and everybody, you know, I don't know why people just can't think out of the box sometimes. Like, oh, just do it. Oh, job one. I'm like, come on, really? Be creative. What would yours be? Not what somebody else's that you're using. You know, that's like comparing Ford to BMW. Oh, we have the same. We have Windows. What would you do? You know, and it's really funny to sit there and watch folks who are accustomed to hearing, well, what are your 5 greatest strengths? What was the last thing that you did that made you feel uncomfortable, and how did you overcome? You know, those things we know the answers to. What we don't know the answers to are questions that are going to set us above someone else. You know, that's what you have to learn. You have to be able to talk about yourself, and you have to kind of be worldly. I mean, staying up on current events, being able to talk about things, you know, just selling yourself is the most important piece of the puzzle, I think.
Gary, thank you.
Thank
very
you guys
much
for waiting for me. I appreciate it.